Hello everyone, it is Sunday the 12th of February. Welcome back to the D3D4 football podcast dedicated to all things Leagues 1 and 2. I really wanted to have a little anecdote for you this week like I did last week with the burger. Nothing as interesting this week for me. I mean, I did see someone trying to get into a Home Bargains through the doors that quite clearly said no entry, emergency exit only, which was a bit humorous to watch. That's the Tamworth area.
Do they like get crowbars and all that sort of stuff, or is it just?
No, they literally just. I don't know if they were fully aware of what was going on around them, but they just kind of walked up to these doors, a big tape on them saying "emergency exit only," thinking that was the main entrance into the shop. So
they're probably still waiting there now. Actually,
they could well be. That's the Tamworth area for you, hey. But we are here to run through the football, League 1 and League 2, another weekend of action. Full set of 24 games as well, plenty to get involved with the third and fourth tiers, and there's three of us here to do it. It's myself, Edward Walker, joined by James Richards and Harry Thomas. James, you had a good week?
Hectic, but yeah, good. Yeah, it's my cough is slightly abated now, which is great. So I'm able to speak at least for a minute without coughing my lungs up, which is wonderful.
I'm sure it is lovely. Harry, yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. I'm aching like a man far beyond my years. I played 90 minutes of football.
Are we all
yesterday.
just falling apart? Is this what's happened?
It doesn't feel that way.
You wait until you're a bit older, lads. You wait.
Oh, are you 20? Are you 24?
26.
26. Am I the youngest one here? How's that happened?
You're a whippersnapper, Ed.
Oh dear. A reminder before we get going, this podcast is in partnership with The Big Step, which tackles football's relationship with gambling. There is an excessive presence of gambling adverts within football, and The Big Step continue to do great work to raise awareness about the dangers of gambling and the impact it can have on so many people's lives. Big thank you as well to all our Patron members. Those who sign up for as little as just £1 per month can get access to additional D3D4 daily podcast episodes. They come throughout the week. They are produced by James, and they focus in depth on individual clubs and provide previews to some of the most eye-catching fixtures in League 1 and League 2 each weekend. You can sign up for that now at patreon.com/D3D4football. We'll not waste any more time. We will get going, and we'll begin as always with the world's best third tier.
League 1.
League 1. There is only one place we can start. Ipswich Town 2, Sheffield Wednesday 2. The game of the day ahead of the weekend. It delivered. This was a rollercoaster of a match. Its first major incident came within 20 minutes. Ipswich Town won a penalty. Connor Chaplin stepping up, his spot kick being saved by Sheffield Wednesday goalkeeper Cameron Dawson. The Owls would end up getting the lead around 8 minutes later with a really lovely goal. It's a great header from Michael Smith. It's a move that starts from a quick free kick down the left-hand side. Josh Windass, playing as one of the strikers, puts a fantastic cross into the left-hand side. All Michael Smith has to do is simply meet the ball mid-run and guide the header towards goal. The pace is already on it from the cross. Wednesday end up doubling their lead through George Byers, and he just steams into the box to get on the end of a loose ball. And with about 35 minutes played, it's all looking really great for Sheffield Wednesday. There is an Ipswich response though. They pull a goal back before half time. Lovely free kick from Nathan Broadhead, taken from a fairly central position. That's his first goal for the Tractor Boys. It's another free kick that ends up getting Ipswich level as well. This one from Leith Davis from a much wider angle. Takes a deflection off the head of George Byers, and that helps take it into the net. Does go down as Davis's goal, though, as the shot was on target. What follows then is around 40 minutes of football with no further goals, but it's a period largely dominated by the hosts Ipswich. Wednesday don't put a shot on target, actually, in the second half. Darren Moore, though, certainly had a lot of praise for the way his side stood firm after losing their lead. You've got to feel that after losing that 2-goal advantage, it's an alright result to Sheffield Wednesday. They have lost top spot for now, but they've extended their run to 17 matches unbeaten in the league. Their run in all competitions was ended on Tuesday with an Ethical replay defeat at Fleetwood Town. For Ipswich, that game yesterday definitely, I think, fell into the do not lose category. Defeat in that game, and the gap between them and the top two would have been at 9 points. It stays at 6 instead. Still quite a big gap to make up, though. The problem for Ipswich is that this weaker form they've had compared to the top sides, it's not only seeing them fall away from those top places that they've been in previously, it's leaving the chasing pack right on the shoulder. Derby and Bolton are very close to them right now. I'm beginning to worry about the potential fallout that we could have to Ipswich season. The opinions that could form on Kieran McKenna, which I feel
would be a shame.
I feel for quite a lot of people it could be based solely on whether or not he earns promotion to the Championship. Expectations are naturally very high at Ipswich Town. That's fine. There's been a lot of investment into the squad. It's resulted in a very good group of players being formed. The challenge to them is that they've had to spend this season up against two exceptional sides in Sheffield Wednesday and Plymouth Argyle. Argyle, as we've known for a while, they're running seriously hot week on week, and to be honest, I expect them to do so. They've been to such a high level throughout the entire campaign. You get the chance to look through the many data charts you can find for League One. Ipswich are exceptional in every single one of them. They create a lot each game. They give very little away. It's that perfect bracket to be in. Now, of course, being exceptional in the data does not guarantee being exceptional in the league table. There are underperformers each season. There are overperformers each season. I'm fine with that. When I look at the run of drop points that Ipswich have suffered recently, I don't see it as a sign of regression, though. I just see it as them not getting the rub of the green at the moment. Maybe there's a lack of efficiency in the finishing. Maybe it's individual mistakes. It could well vary on a game-by-game basis. What I do believe, though, firmly, is that Ipswich Town under Kieran McKenna do the right thing and are heading in the right direction. I don't believe that judging him purely on the binary outcome of promotion or no promotion is the right thing to do with what is one of the brightest young coaches in English football right now.
I agree. Well, I completely agree with all you've just said, actually. It would be such a shame for reactionary, fan-based opinion on a sort of a recent run of form that hasn't actually been a disaster, only in the context of the two other teams that they're chasing being on fire. And, you know, it happens sometimes. It really does. I think Shrewsbury Town season in 17-18 would have been a promotion in any other year, but they had Blackburn and Wigan. And it was just, you know, so unfortunate for them. And I think that, you know, this game in particular, Sheffield Wednesday have done exactly what they needed to do, by the way, in their last two games. They've beaten Plymouth Argyle at home. They've gone to a very difficult promotion rival away from home and not been beaten. A 2-2 draw is absolutely fine. And I also think that it's fair to point out that the depth that they had available to them in this particular match was succinctly down on what perhaps they could have had if their full complement of players were fit. If you look at their bench, there weren't a lot of options compared to Ipswich. So, you know, they've done exactly what they needed to do. But I agree about Ipswich. I think they just need to keep with Kieran McKenna. They're playing good football. And if they carry on having faith in him, things will in the end go right. And there's still plenty of time in this season for them to pick up a bit of form because the data is still very strong and have a promotion via the playoffs. I think that'll be a very difficult team to beat over two legs. We'll have to wait and see on that one, of course, because there's nothing set just yet.
I understand that the concerns are there because expectation, as I've said, is high at Ipswich. I completely get that. It's a great group of players, one that you want to be expecting to see gaining promotion this season, but I don't think it's the be-all and end-all if they do miss out to whatever reason. If they don't get automatic promotion, if they miss out in the playoffs, I would really hope that they persist with what they have under Kieran McKenna because it's going great. It's doing all the right things, and they really do need to believe in what's being built there. Jay, should we look at one of the other big games at the top of League One? Plymouth Argyle 3, Portsmouth 1.
Yeah, great result for Argyle after their disappointment at Hillsborough. Just what they needed, a bounce-back win against... I don't call this a derby, by the way. I know some people call it the Dockside Derby, but there are so many docks all over the country. Every single one could be called it. I think what this is actually is a really good competitive rivalry that has developed due to the closeness of the teams in the divisions they've been respectively playing in recent seasons. And I thought Argyle did everything right in this game. Portsmouth are not an easy side to play against. John Mousinho has got them playing better football. But there were some very astute decisions because there were 8 changes made by Stephen Schumacher coming into this one. Obviously, a couple of them were enforced with Dan Scarr's injury and Michael Cooper's injury. Callum Burton had a superb game. Very calm, collected. You know, a lot has been made of Cooper. I mean, I myself called it a bit of a disaster when he got injured because his stat of, I think it's goals saved above expected was something like goals saved above expected was 11.26, which is mad.
That is crazy.
You know, I've seen high 8s before. I've never seen something like this. I'm sure it has happened, but I mean, wonderful goalkeeper. So it was very important for Argyle that Burton gives their backline the same confidence that Cooper doesn't. Clearly, you can see he does. They brought Randall back into the team. Obviously, Longwick comes in for Scarr. I thought the clever bit of tactical manoeuvring here, not only did Schumacher go with 2 up front in Cosgrove and Hardy with Callum right behind him, but he actually brought in Miller, Michael Miller, who obviously came from Rotherham, who we've hardly seen this season. He's been injured. And it was interesting that he got the opportunity in this one. And the reasoning behind it was that he knew that Deschamps Bernard is not a natural right back playing for Portsmouth. So he thought, I'll give my guy who's been out injured most of the season an opportunity to play against a player who is not a natural right back. And despite the fact he's probably a bit rusty because he hasn't played much, Miller just played brilliantly, and Bernard was second best in all their battles and all their duels. And it was great because his shot deflected into the path of Cosgrove, who poked home for number 1. Then Azaz benefits from a ragged mistake to finish well to make it 2-0. Rico Hackett-Fairchild, of course, pulled one back for Pompey with a decent finish after a set piece. But Sam Cosgrove set up Ryan Hardy with, let's be honest, a cool finish as you can find to make it 3-1 just when Portsmouth were putting Sean Raggett up front and trying to bustle their way back into the game. And I think you put out the Desmond Derby, which I think is far better
this game's finished 2-2, I think, 5 of the last 6 meetings.
Yeah, and Stephen Schumacher was worried, I think, when Portsmouth scored, that he goes, "Oh, here we go again,"
Well, there were 4 goals, so,
Yeah, really, really well taken. I think one thing he did notice, which, he said Callum Burton brought us a confidence and a surety despite Michael Cooper's injury. Uluwemi for Portsmouth did not, and he even noticed that himself, saying that he was a very nervous young goalkeeper. I noticed that a lot of the shots that would probably be palmed away more sufficiently by a more experienced keeper weren't. A lot of his goalkeeping pushed the ball away into dangerous areas. Obviously, Sam Cosgrove benefited.
Was Matt Macy unavailable for this?
Yes, I mean, it wasn't something I was aware of before the game. I expected Macy to start, but he must have picked up an injury or I assume at some point, because it was a bit of a shock for me to see the lineup and not have him in it. So it's obviously a big problem for Portsmouth because they haven't done very well with Uluwemi in goal. And that's not a slight on the youngster. He's just inexperienced and they were against very good teams. But a solid win for Argyle, who I love the fact that they can just make 8 changes and it's seamless. Their bench is replete with such exciting talent. You've got Azaz on the bench, Mwamba on the bench, Danny Mayer on the bench, this Ben Wayne chap who's come in and done really well, Jay Matette. I mean, they've just got players on that bench who will change games if you need them to. But Argyle just so strong. And again, another victory at home, which is just their home form has been ridiculous this season.
Yeah, the home form is so impressive. It's 42 points from a possible 45 at home. Port Vale fans will be very happy to be reminded that they're the only team who've actually taken points off Argyle at home park this season. But if you were to take just purely Plymouth Argyle's home points this season and put them into the table, they're 10th.
Unbelievable. It's just crazy, isn't it?
Incredible. What a team. Back on top of the pile as well with a really good win over Portsmouth. The biggest win of the weekend, though, James, was a stunning result at London Road. Peterborough United 0, Bolton Wanderers 5.
Yeah, Darren Ferguson not happy, but quite rightly, I think, in some respects, saying that he wouldn't chastise his team too much about this and just try and build them back up for the Tuesday game. This is the stat that I think is interesting, that Peterborough have played 10 games against teams in the top 10 of League One this season. They've won once and lost 9. If you're a team that has serious promotion ambitions, you can't lose against 9 of the top 10 teams in your division. It's as simple as that. And this was a game where that gulf in class was so obvious that I don't know how Peterborough fans, will react to it. I think they will be hugely disappointed. Again, though, like Bolton's January transfer window has been really solid. Dion Charles obviously getting a hat-trick in this one. His first since he scored 3 for Accrington in a 6-1 win against Bristol Rovers back in February 2021. So, it's been a while coming. I think that's 17 in all competitions for him this season. He's been a really, really good player for the Trotters. And their lineup, they can again, a bit like Plymouth, they can pull players in and out as and when they need them. I think Gethin Jones had an absolutely superb game and is a very understated player in a team full of probably guys that you would give credit for being more flair types and more creative. But he had a great game. Obviously used to playing usually on the right of a back 3, but he's been used at left wing back, right wing back, and in this particular game he was used at right wing back. And it was his shot that deflected off the prone Ricardo Santos, who took credit for it. That's Santos's first goal since October 2019 when he was with Barnet. And it's his first brace since January 2017. Again, that was when Barnet were actually still in League 2, which is just crazy. He's not a prolific scorer, but he got 2 in this one. Gethin Jones obviously involved in that one. Shortire then won a penalty, and Shola Shortire looks a really good player. Very tricky. He got quick feet, and they didn't know how to handle him. He actually won 2 penalties in this one. This was the first, which then Dion Charles slotted home. Gethin Jones then outlet Butler really quite easily on that right-hand side before putting in a peach of a cross for Dion Charles to get his second of the game and make it 3-0. This was just after half-time. So any hopes of a Peterborough comeback dashed within 2 minutes of the restart. Shola Shortar then won another penalty only 4 minutes later, which Dion Charles took to seal his hat-trick. And it was all but dead, the game at this point. Santos did bag a fifth after a bit of a scrappy play, but he managed to get his toe on it and poke it in for his second of the game. I thought Mbete, who's come in, I think is he on loan from Man City?
He is, yeah.
He was excellent. He was seamless on that.
Johan Tull the same. I noticed on the right hand side as well. Those outer centre backs were brilliant in this game.
Yeah, Owen Toll has actually. It took him a while to get going here, just because of the fitness level required. But since he's found his place in this team, he's been really, really good. They actually could do without Santos for a while when he had this breathing difficulty. He's now back to his best, obviously, and they've just got players that they can slot in and make the changes and make the difference. They brought on Cameron Jerome, they brought on Victor Adebayo, they brought on Sheehan and Williams. They brought on players that can really, I thought they'd go with Randall Williams to start in this one. But Gethin Jones had a superb game. What was it? I think 2 assists, 3 assists in the match, in a game where he was unlucky not to score. Peterborough just, again, shocking. It's really disappointing for them. They've lost far too many games this season for a side wanting to really challenge at the top. That's their 12th defeat in the league, which, is the more than any side in the top half of the table. Lincoln, I think, who are in 13th, have lost. No, sorry, not Lincoln. It's Bristol Rovers have lost 13. That's the first side to have lost more games than them. As you go down the table, I think Exeter have also lost 12. So, but Peterborough, I think if you were told Peterborough would lose 12 games by sort of early February, you'd think, yeah, their season's over. But because they've been, they've only drawn 2 and they've won the rest, they are still sort of in the hunt for the playoffs. But it's looking less and less like with performances like that.
That's going to make people questioning it, isn't it? After a stunning result to Bolton in what was their 5,000th game, I believe. One of the founding members of the Football League well over a century ago. Someday to remember at London Road to them, and a great win over what looked a playoff chaser. Harry, we'll talk about another playoff chaser who did beat a playoff side. Wycombe Wanderers 3, Derby County 2.
Yeah, brilliant result for Wycombe. Gareth Chambers got them playing really well at the minute, but in the end, I had to chalk this one down to being another case of the manager of the month curse.
I think Colchester United has something to say about that. We'll get onto them later.
But yeah, Paul Warren was presented with the January League One Manager of the Month on Friday, and so I suppose it was inevitable that his team were going to turn up and lose on Saturday. It is a brilliant win for Wycombe, though. They've now won 7 of the last 10 games. I think the only 2 games that they lost in there were against Sheffield Wednesday and Plymouth, if I remember correctly. So even then, the games that they're losing are against teams right up at the very top. And I do think they're in with a very strong shout for, at the very least, that final playoff spot. They ended a run of 15 games unbeaten for Derby. So again, a very impressive run ended there.
They actually did this as well, didn't they? Without their top scorer, who's now at Bristol City, and both what you probably consider their best 2 centre-backs in Tafasoli and Mawson, which is just crazy that they can still win games like this without such key players missing.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really makeshift side at the minute, isn't it? But you couldn't tell from that game. It was entertaining at both ends. And I suppose conceding 2 goals, even if it is against Derby, shows that maybe you've not got your strongest defence out. But it was Sam Vokes who gave the Chairboys the lead in the first half. It was a really nicely hit volley, to be honest. A deflected effort from Brandon Hanlon fell to him in the box, and he's just smashed it into the roof of net effectively. Derby pulled one back 20 minutes into the second half. It was some good work on the right wing from David McGoldrick, who looked like a young winger rather than an ageing striker. He drilled the ball across goal and into James Collins for what I think was probably the easiest of his 9 goals this season. Wycombe went back in front. It was a well-worked corner routine that would have earned you a £5 fine on a Sunday League pitch. But Lewis Wing received the ball on the edge of the box. His shot took a very heavy deflection and went into the bottom corner. Just under 5 minutes to go, they then made it 3-1. A low cross from TJ DeBar found Wing again, and he finished it from close range. I think I saw that this is his joint best scoring season in the EFL, so you can see him bettering that you can see him getting a few more between now and the end of the season. So he's been really important for them, and it'd be good to see him stepping up, getting the goals now that Anis Mehmeti has moved on. Derby made it a nervy end to the game. Lewis Dobbins scored a really nice goal. It was a shame that it was just consolation. It's one of those goals where you think it's wasted on a game that you've already lost. Lovely curling effort into the top corner, but they couldn't get that third goal to help them extend their long unbeaten run. Talking about the defence and missing their two centre-backs, one really nice bit of news that came out of Wycombe yesterday. The announcement shortly before the game that they signed Jordan Willis as cover at centre-back. You might remember him. I think he was last at Sunderland. They released him in the summer, but he hadn't actually played in a game of football since February 2021 after a really serious injury. So he came on in the 95th minute. It was really good to see him back on a pitch. And like you say, with Tafazolli and Alfie Mawson out injured, Wycombe seems like it could potentially be a good place for him to start getting some minutes under his belt and hopefully get back to that kind of form, because he was absolutely brilliant at Coventry and Sunderland. And it's never nice for any player to be out for so long. But yeah, I think he could potentially be an important part of that back four for the rest of the season.
I would like to hope so, yeah. And impressive for a makeshift Wycombe backline with Jack Grimmer and Joe Jacobson naturally considered a right back and a left back respectively, playing in centre back roles, and a great win. Good performance of Max Stryjek, I think, in the Wycombe goal as well. Did you say you get fined for short corners, Harry?
Yeah, they're very much not popular
with your
which is
team,
a shame, because
or just in general?
I think it's just a general thing. People may come in and disagree with me, but I've definitely been told if you take a short corner, you pay a fine after the game. So
wow, okay. I don't think I've come across fines for it before. That's quite brutal on the team, but okay.
Is it the same with short goal kicks as well in Sunday League football?
I think short goal kicks sometimes are a bit more of a necessity, aren't they?
I don't know. When I was a kid, it was just.
I mean, the common thing for me is a centre back taking the goal kick over the keeper. That's something I've seen loads of.
That's right.
Because the goalkeeper's not really capable of doing it.
Yeah, the guy with the biggest kick takes
he just launches it every time. But enough about Sunday League. We'll go back to Football League instead, and we'll look at another of the playoff sides. Harry, Barnsley 2, Cambridge United 0.
Yeah, it was a pretty routine win for Barnsley in the end, but things are looking very concerning for Cambridge United at the moment. I'm worried about them. I know you guys are too. We talk about it a lot at the minute, but they're the league's second lowest scorers after Cheltenham. They've scored 24 goals in 29 games, which is nowhere near enough. And only Burton and Forest Green have conceded more than them. So, I mean, that's a recipe for disaster, really, isn't it? If you add to that, they've got no wins in 7, and they, I think at least, had a largely uninspiring January transfer window. I don't
know. I thought, considering what a club of that size could do, I think they added some pieces that might end up being quite useful. Conor McGrandles, George Thomas in midfield, I think in particular when you consider the fact that they've got Adam May out injured and Liam O'Neill's been out for most of the season. I think those guys coming in was a pretty good bit of business. And I think Michael Morrison and Ryan Bennett will add experience where they haven't really had any. Sorry, someone taking off in the background is somewhere. But yeah, no, I don't know. We'll see. I think difficult to judge them against a Barnsley team who are going on, but their form needs to change quickly, doesn't it? That's the worrying thing. Like, confidence breeds victories and defeats breeds this sort of going into your shell and a massive issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, I do think that Bennett's going to be a good signing at the back. If they can shore up that defence a bit more, it will make a difference. I just don't think I saw anybody come in the January transfer window who particularly excited me, especially up front. So I'm very happy to be proved wrong, but we'll wait and see with that one. They went behind after just 8 minutes yesterday. Cardiff City loanee Max Waters got his first goal for Barnsley, capitalising on a rebound after Devante Cole's shot was spilled by Dimitar Mitov. Waters' day was over before the half-time whistle, though. He recklessly led with an elbow when jumping with Lloyd Jones. He was quite rightly shown a straight red card, which when you're the age he's at and he's dropped down a level to try and get some more game time, it's the last thing you want is 3 games on the sideline. And I mean, he's going to be by no means guaranteed his place in the starting 11 when he comes back in. So hopefully he'll have learnt a lesson there, if nothing else. Cambridge did only have the man advantage for around 10 minutes of the first half, but it was again a big concern to see them going in at half time without registering a single shot on or off target. Despite being a man down, Michael Duff opted to push for a second goal, and he switched from a back 5 to a back 4 at half time. Paid off with just over an hour gone. A header was cleared out to right back Jordan Williams, who lashed in a low volley from 25 yards out. Again, it was a really nice finish, and it kind of just killed the game off, really. Cambridge did push for a comeback throughout the half. They managed 9 shots as well as 70% possession across the second half, but they just weren't able to make it count. It was a combination of wasteful finishing and good goalkeeping from debutant Harry Istas. So they left Oakwell empty-handed. I mean, like you say, James, these aren't the sort of games that are going to define their season. You don't go away to a playoff chaser and come away frustrated if
you've got to be annoyed, though, I think, from a Cambridge perspective, because they've had 2 games against Barnsley this year. They've lost 5-0 in aggregate, 3-0 at the Abbey, 2-0 at Oakwell. Barnsley had 10 men on both occasions to plenty of the matches. You're not capitalising against teams with lower numbers than you. That's got to annoy them.
I'm sure it does. I mean, it's just I thought they were okay against Lincoln, and a draw against Ipswich in the last game was impressive. It depends. To me, it's all like, can they beat those in and around them? And more importantly, can they find a way of scoring at key moments when they're on top? Because they haven't been able to do that recently. You have to go back to Boxing Day, I think, for their last win, and it's great. And that was gifted to them, to be honest, by mistakes by Salop rather than necessarily them creating.
Yeah, look at Salop now, eh?
Well, exactly. I mean, isn't football? That's the thing as well, though, isn't it? A few weeks, things can change dramatically. I mean, Morecambe were the other example I was going to bring up from how they changed their season from being, hopelessly bottom to, really having a great chance of survival. So Cambridge will need these players to bed in quickly, but I am a bit like you, Harry, a bit concerned with the lack of goals.
I think we all feel that way about Cambridge. They need to take a lesson, I think, James, as we said, from Shrewsbury. Who has put 50p in Shrewsbury this season, James? Shrewsbury Town 3, Port Vale 2.
Yeah, and they've done this. I mean, this win is massively impressive because obviously it's their 6th straight victory. They haven't had 6 straight wins in the league since their promotion season back in 2014-15, where they did it twice. If they win again, I'm going to have to do some serious work to try and find out when they won 7 in a row in the league. And so, part of me is hoping they don't do that just to save me some work. But actually, it's a wonderful story. And they did this without no Matt Pennington, no Tom Flanagan. So 2 of their back 3 were missing. They had Luke Leahy playing left centre-back and Taylor Moore at the right centre-back. Shay Dunkley, who is 1 goal away, I think, from equaling his best ever scoring season, which he did a few years ago. He scored 5 now this season. He got a goal and an assist in this game. But they were behind. 13 minutes in, Dennis Politics stooped to head a Sammy Robertson cross in, and I thought it was a really nice header, actually. There's really good direction on it to give Port Vale the lead. And Port Vale, remember, they haven't had Matt Taylor come into the team yet. They're still without Ellis Harrison and James Wilson. When they get those players back, they will look a completely different side, because that's basically all their firepower. They've had to keep going with Gavin Massey and Dennis Politics as their strikers, and they're just not really natural in those positions. So that is a caveat to Vale's recent slump, and I think it might change quickly when they get those players back. Salop, though, very good at set pieces. I'll give them that. 15 goals they've scored from set pieces this season, bettered only by Ipswich Town, who've scored 17. And they got 2 corners in this game, which led to 2 more goals, another one for Shay Dunkley. And then Dunkley got the assist to flick the ball on. I think it was to Leahy, actually, who got on the score sheet to make it 2-1. Then Killian Phillips made it 3. Set up by Jordan Shipley, who I think was having a cross. Elliot Bennett, if you saw the cross that Elliot Bennett did on the volley in this move, I was very impressed by that. If only the striker, it might have been Christian Sadie who tried to hit it first time, that would have been one of the goals of the season, just for the audacious effort of the cross in the first place. But it did end up at the feet of Phillips, who made it 3-1. Port Vale came back in the second half. Jamie Proctor pulled a goal back after really good work from Gavin Massey. But in the end, Salop held strong, and I think this is a team with a wonderful spirit about them. And just a great story, really, because they looked like they were going in the wrong direction not so long ago. Excuse me. And now they're absolutely flying, and it's a club that I have a lot of time for. Shrewsbury Town. I think they are well run. They don't overextend themselves. I know they've got a small squad, and that has been a problem this season and indeed last season, but they're 47 points from 30 games. They're 3 points outside the playoffs, albeit playing a couple more than Barnsley. But, to be up there with those kind of teams whose budgets probably outweigh theirs by a third or more, I mean, it's incredibly impressive from Salop.
It really is. I'm stunned by them. You look at the 2 games they got this week. Midweek, they're down at Exeter, St James Park, and following weekend up at Accrington. Could it be 8? Dare I say that?
That could be a record, couldn't it?
I'll have to absolutely, it's phenomenal what they're doing. Really, they are in the league's best form right now. They are actually looking at those playoff places and feeling it's possible. It's incredible form they're in. I've got nothing really more to add to Shrewsbury in the weeks we've had with them now, other than Killian Phillips looks a great signing, who's coming to Crystal Palace. He was the only player they brought in January on loan. Looks great in midfield. Really good. Played attacking midfield, played centre midfield. Great part in the win yesterday. Phenomenal Shrewsbury. I've got nothing more to add about them. They've been exceptional right now. And I'd love if they could carry this on for a bit longer as well. They've got an intriguing week coming up. Could be maybe 7 in a row, 8 in a row. We'll see what happens with those next 2 games. Harry, Charlton Athletic 1, Fleetwood Town 2.
So I saw someone else asking the question on Twitter a couple of weeks ago of which teams would you most confidently say will be in League One and League Two next season. And I was thinking about this, and for me, Charlton are definitely my answer for League One. The recent form since Dean Holden's taken over has been pretty good, but I just don't think that they're consistent enough. And this match is a prime example of why I don't think they've got enough to be considered for those bottom playoff spots. So Fleetwood lost captain Danny Andrew to injury just 10 minutes into the game, but his replacement, Sean Rooney, came in and gave them the lead after half an hour with an incredible finish from range after the ball was headed to him outside the box. I'll take nothing away from the finish, especially coming from a defender. It was really well hit. But Holden must be frustrated watching it back, as there's just nobody around him in a red shirt seeming to make any attempt to close him down. I think he probably could have had another 4 or 5 touches and he still would have been in acres of space when he hit it. The side were level 5 minutes into added time though. Jesper Raksaki got his 9th league goal of the season with another excellent finish. Talking about Crystal Palace loanees, he's definitely worth a mention, and I don't think we'll be seeing him in League One next season.
Absolutely not.
I mean, he's been a shining light, hasn't he? You can, if he doesn't go to the Championship, it'll be because he's starting for Crystal Palace next season. I think he's just absolutely brilliant, and he scores all sorts of different goals, and he's just so dangerous in an attack. So yeah, we'll enjoy him whilst we've got him. Not long into the second half, Scott Brown's side went back in front as a Phoenix Patterson corner found the head of Harrison Holgate for his first goal for the club. And I believe it's actually his first goal in senior football altogether. So a big moment for him. For Charlton fans, though, I think the biggest concern coming out of this game was that they ended the day with only one of the 4 defenders that started it still on the pitch. Right back Sean Clare went off through injury just over an hour into the game. Ryan Innes was then shown a straight red card for a foul on Kean Hayes. I think it was maybe slightly harsh that it was a straight red. But nonetheless, he'll now be missing for the next 3 matches. And left back Matt Penny.
That's like his 4th or 5th of the season, I think.
Yeah, the term hothead comes to mind, doesn't it? So he'll be a big miss at the back there. And then to add insult to injury, left back Matt Penny then also saw his day cut short. So Holden may find himself forced into at least 3 changes going into their next game. I think Ed mentioned it last week. I was at Highbury last weekend, and watching it, I did feel like Fleetwood are in real danger of being pulled into the relegation battle. They've obviously got that fairy tale story going on in the FA Cup into the next round for the first time in their history. Trip away to Burnley coming up, but the form's not been brilliant in League One, and I just felt like they're getting a bit dangerously close to the bottom. But this will be an absolutely huge 3 points for them. The 4 points clear of 21st place. I think they've got Peterborough and Plymouth in their next couple of games, which will be tough. But then they've got Cambridge and Morecambe both coming to them at home. So those are the games that are probably going to give us a better idea of where they'll be come the end of the season.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think the problem for Fleetwood, certainly last week against Burton, was that the Brewers didn't let them play. It got into a very physical, direct affair, which saw Jane Stockley, one of the new front line, basically having to play in midfield trying to win headers rather than being one of them leading the line up top alongside Jack Marriott. And I feel like yesterday against Charlton, Fleetwood probably got a bit more of an opportunity to show what they can be about on the ball, because under Scott Brown, I think they do try to progress it quite well when you've got players like Carlos Mendes Gomez and Phoenix Patterson in wide areas as well. Obviously without Josh Vela because of that left card also. Are Charlton maybe regretting letting as many defenders go as they did? You know, letting Sam Lavelle go out to Burton, seeing Joe Nicole get bought by Wrexham, because I'm not quite sure what their back four is going to look like if they lose all these key players.
No, and Sessegnon's injury problems are continuing as well.
Michael
Very
Hector not fit at the moment.
I'm not sure. I think he's one they're trying to ease back in after him not playing much. So yeah.
Yeah, not ideal for Charlton, certainly, but really pivotal win for Fleetwood, who are one of the teams we've got in this group of 8 that we see in the relegation battle at the moment. Another one of those in that relegation battle are the Brewers, Burton Albion. They beat Exeter City 1-0 yesterday at the Pirelli Stadium. It is 3 wins in a row for the Brewers. The last time they won 3 league matches on the bounce, the first 3 games of last season. It's been a while for them. This was very much a case of smash and grab from the hosts. I was very impressed and encouraged with how Exeter City looked to progress the ball under their manager Gary Caldwell. Their biggest threat came down the left-hand side. Archie Collins on the left side of midfield, player that just needs no introduction from us. He's so good at receiving the ball on the turn, keeping the tempo ticking over. Fantastic player to have in the Grecians team. The main threat throughout this game, though, was Jake Caprice at left wing-back. Caprice is a player I remember thirsting and liking when he was at Tranmere Rovers. He was playing at full back in a team which would win promotion through the League 2 playoffs that season. This is his 3rd campaign now with Exeter City. He plays as a wing back on either side. I quite like him on the left, whereas a natural right footer, he plays inverted, likes to cut inside, put deliveries into the box. Got a really good turn of pace about him as well. He's very comfortable facing up to his man, looking to beat the 1v1. I don't think Burton were actually able to handle Jake Caprice in this game. What they were able to handle was what he put into the box. There were strong defensive performances, in particular from Sam Hughes in the centre of the back 3, and then Jasper Moon as well. The latter came in on loan from Barnsley in January, had not been given a very positive review from Tyke supporters from his time there. He's a perfectly fine defender. He had a part to play in all 3 of Burton's recent wins, playing on the left side of the back 3. Yesterday, I think, was his best performance of the lot, some really key bits of emergency defending in there from him. Generally, Exeter City dominated a lot this match. They had a lot more of the ball, more of the near moments. The limited number of ball players in the Burton Albion side really restricted the amount of open play opportunities that they could create. What Burton have benefited from for the last couple of years, however, is having a very big set-piece threat. And it's from one of those set-pieces that the winner for substitute Sam Winnell originates from. Dino Maamri's team right now, they look like what you associate with a successful relegation survivor being. They're very direct. There's a strong focus on defensive solidity. They soak up pressure, and they're able to capitalise on the moments that come their way. It's a sucker punch of a result for Exeter, another defeat for them, but another vital 3 points to Bolton Albion, who are in top half form at the moment, even despite heavy defeats to Morecambe and Shrewsbury Town being among their recent results. They're getting themselves not only out of the bottom of the floor, but clear of it right now. Crucial result for the Brewers at the Pirelli Stadium. One more 1-0 to mention in League 1. Lincoln City 1, Bristol Rovers 0. This is a league double over the gas secured for the Imps. They've got back-to-back wins. Their home record at Sincil Bank now stands as 3 wins, 11 draws and 0 defeats. They've got 9 games left to go the full season unbeaten at home. I'd love it Lincoln could do that. The only goal of this game is a controversial one. It's a first half corner routine. The ball's played into the box by Jack Diamond, and it's headed in the back post by Regan Paul. What you can clearly see, however, is that the flight of the ball passes over the top of James Connolly, who is on the ground, having moments earlier been in the tussle with Ben House. Had Connolly been in this seat, he very likely would have got to that ball before it reached Regan Paul. There's no foul given, though. The goal stands. I do certainly understand where Joe Barton's frustrations do come from with that incident. Towards the end of the first half as well, there's a red card to Bristol Rovers' Ryan Loft. Carl Rushworth's come off his line to catch a ball that's been played over the top. Loft jumps up into him as he catches it, and his elbow hits Rushworth in that region, kind of just below the neck and just above the chest. Keeper goes down onto the ground as a result of the contact. Striker Ryan Loft gets sent off. There's nothing exceptionally aggressive about the elbow into Rushworth, but I don't really see why Loft needed to jump into him. It just felt unnecessary to me. You've enticed the officials into making a decision there, and I don't really agree with the idea from Loft to do it. That red card, it spoils the game from that point, really. Mark Kennedy felt the same as well, the Lincoln manager, about it. There's a lot of needles from these two sides throughout the game. Bristol Rovers do make an attempt to come back, but they don't manage it. A 4th straight league defeat in a row for them now. I think this probably was a more encouraging display, though, compared to the previous match they've had. There's been some much more heavy defeats than this one at Sincil Bank. There's a clip going round from BB Radio Lincolnshire's interview with midfielder Ethan Erhon post-game. It is quite hard to hear as it is in the background, but you can hear Joe Barton have some pretty choice words for Erhon and his apparent pushing and went on the game. It's not a great look. Barton just really needs to focus on his own side, who are in a bad rut at the moment and need to get out of it. They've got home games against Ipswich Town and Bolton Wanderers to come this week for the gas. Focus needs to be on that because they're a bit light on options, particularly in defence, not looking strong defensively at the moment. 3 more games I want to quickly run through to League One. Morecambe 1, Forest Green Rovers 1. Forest Green got a late opener. Jamari Clark heading Duncan Ferguson's side in front towards the end of the game. Morecambe's equaliser coming very late on from the right foot of Cole Stonkton. A thumping finish. That's a first point for Duncan Ferguson at Forest Green Rovers, but it's so close to being more, and points are not going to be enough for them in the situation they're in the minute, down right at the bottom of the table. Milton Keynes Dons 1, Oxford United 1. Pair of really good goals here. Sully Kaikai, MK Dons' opener, cutting in off the left-hand side. Really nice low finish with his right foot. Oxford's equalisers from Lewis Bates. Really good hit, this. Hit with so much power. Hit with a lot of power, and Jamie Cumming just can't handle it. And yeah, as you say, James, I think Bates probably been maybe a star, certainly recently.
Yeah, I'd agree. He's getting better and better every game I see him. He'll be another of these guys to move to the Championship.
Leeds United loanee, isn't he?
Yeah, very good player.
Probably to have gone by the end of the season, but good for him. And a point for Oxford at Stadium MK. And the other game to mention, Cheltenham Town 0, Accrington Stanley 0 at Wadham Road. Shouldn't have been 0-0. A lot of opportunities came Cheltenham Town's way. They're going to be frustrated that they've only got a point from that one. I will run through the League One table to finish. Plymouth Argyle, with their win over Portsmouth, are back on top of the table. They've got 64 points from 30 games. Sheffield Wednesday, with their draw at Portman Road, are second. They've got 62 from 29. Ipswich Town are third. They've got 56 from 30. Bolton Wanderers, with that thumping win, are fourth on 56 from 31. Derby are fifth on 53 from 29. Barnsley wrap up the playoff places on 50 from 28. You've got Wickham in 7th on 47 from 29. Shrewsbury are 8th on 47 from 30. And Peterborough are 9th on 44 from 28. It kind of feels like those three are going to be the ones that can take one of those playoff spots and be the chasing pack, although Peterborough got a real shock result in that heavy defeat to Bolton at this weekend, of course. Down at the bottom, Forest Green Rovers looking adrift to the rest, 22 points from 31 games. Below everyone else, playing more games. It's a real big task that Duncan Ferguson's got in his hands. Cambridge United are 23rd. They've got 26 points from 29. Accrington Stanley are 22nd. They've got 27 from 28. Morecambe are 21st. They've got 28 points from 29. MK Dons are 20th on 29 from 30. Cheltenham Town are 19th on 30 from 29. Burton Albion are into nosebleed territory, 18th in the table. I can't believe that. That's the first time this season they're in a place in the table that doesn't start with a 2. It's been that long away. 18th, I can't believe I'm looking at it. 31 points in 29 games. Fleetwood Town with their win at Charlton, 17th, 32 from 29. It's that 8, although Oxford, 36 from 31, do need to pick up a bit. They need to start getting some wins together, or there's a danger they could potentially get dragged into that by the end of the season. We will drop down and take a look at the world's best 4th tier.
League 2.
League 2, we will kick off with you, Harry, with the game of the day. Just a really good affair at the Lamex. Stevenage 2, Bradford City 3.
Yeah, what a game this was. The one thing that I was thinking is if Stevenage do manage to carry on and achieve promotion into League One next season, and I think at this point most of us are expecting them to do so, you'd imagine that Steve Evans will be praying that Bradford City aren't one of the other 3 teams that join them up there. They've been responsible for 2 of his side's 4 defeats in the league this season, and the 3 goals that they scored yesterday mean they're also responsible for 33% of the away goals scored at the Lamex. They'd only conceded 6 all season at home going into this game. Although I don't know how much there is to read into this. I think it's just a funny coincidence. But both of the games that they've lost at home this year have been 3-2. So take from that what you will. It was Stevenage who got the only goal of the first half. Who other than Carl Pigiani rising highest to head in for his 6th of the season, which is absolutely absurd in February for a centre-back. Bradford hadn't scored in their last 4 away games, but early in the second half, 36-year-old Matt Derbyshire showed why Mark Hughes was brought him back to England as he thumped a half volley in off the underside of the crossbar from the edge of the box.
It's 7 seasons since he last scored in English football for Rotherham.
Yeah,
he's been all
absolutely
over the world since. Real journeyman striker. Love it.
I mean, and we were all sort of saying when he came back, what's he going to bring? Is he still going to be up there in terms of fitness?
Well, if it finishes like that, he can stay more. Brilliant hit.
Yeah. Yeah, he really looked like he hadn't been away, didn't he? What a finish it was. Just over 5 minutes later, and I've already been proved wrong by one of the games that James is going to be discussing here, but I'd said for possibly the first time in the history of English Football League refereeing, a foul was given for shirt pulling in the box. Bradford were awarded a penalty, which Andy Cook duly put away, to put him just 2 goals off the league's top scorer, Christian Dennis. I've said it before, but again, I cannot understand that spell that he had on the bench. When he's on the pitch, he scores goals. The amount of games that he missed, and he's still 2 off top scorer in League Two, and he assisted the other 2 in this game as well. You'd think he's one of those cliched first names on the team sheet, isn't he? If you've got Andy Cook in your squad this season, you play Andy Cook every week, and he's going to win you games, and he proved that, didn't he, this weekend? Harry Lewis made an incredible save to deny Josh March before Dan Sweeney then drew the game level again, powered in a header from a corner for another vintage Stevenage goal. With 5 minutes to go, there was some clever build-up play, saw Jamie Walker put through, and he scored what would be the winner for Bradford, although Luke Norris did hit the crossbar Stevenage late on. Bradford are now unbeaten in 4, albeit that including 2 0-0s, and this was a seriously impressive performance. These are the games that they need to be winning if they're to be in with a shout of getting into the playoffs. I think they're just outside at the minute, aren't they? I'm pretty sure they're in 8th position, but they seem like a pretty good shout, and if they can carry on with games like this, then you'd expect them to be right up there come the end of the season.
It is. We don't have really complaints about Bradford away from home. They are good away from home. The problem has been at Valley Parade for them. They've got the 3rd best away record in the league, only behind Leyton Orient and Northampton, and their home record is 15th, Harry.
It just doesn't make any sense, does it at all?
I've always kind of wondered about maybe it's always weird to say with Bradford, but is there maybe just increased expectations of the home crowd? Do the away team just up it because of the occasion of being at the biggest venue in the league? It's up to debate really what causes this drop in home form for them.
I mean, I've seen that argument bandied about before, but then at the same time, how often do people talk about a home crowd being the 12th man? And if you're pulling in the biggest home crowds in the league by some distance, then in theory you should be one of the hardest places to go, shouldn't you?
Completely agree.
It doesn't make any sense at all. And if we're going to be critical, they do concede a fair amount of goals, I think. I would like to see them tighten up a bit more at the back. I think conceding 2 against Stevenage is not that bad, but they've had a problem recently with conceding from set pieces, and so to come in against a team that sort of relies on set pieces to score the goals and see them score 2 is not ideal, but take nothing away from the win. It's a huge victory. Like I say, only the 2nd team to win at the Lamex this season, and the only team to do the double over Stevenage. So,
and then they're once again thankful to Andy Cook, who he wasn't missing out completely on the team. It wasn't that he was starting. I think there was a period where Mark Hughes tried a different formation with Verdane Oliver in the line. It had a little bit of effect with a couple of consecutive wins, and he started persisting with that with Abu Issa alongside him, and now he's gone back to fancying Andy Cook again, and in the 2 starts he's had in his last 2 games, he's got 2 goals and 2 assists, helping his team to 4 points. You can't keep a good player down.
Yeah, and credit to him for coming back in and carrying that form on and showing that he was hungry to win his place back.
Absolutely. James, Mansfield Town 2, Gillingham 0.
Yeah, it was a pretty comfortable win for the Stags in this one. And for a side that have been so inconsistent, they've now 4 unbeaten. Got big games coming up, of course, against Carlisle and Tranmere, both away this week. But to play a Gillingham side who have been in such good form and win in a way that I felt they looked to cut above them is pretty impressive. I give Nigel Clark massive credit for that. Ollie Clark scored after 21 minutes with a stinging shot. I think it took a deflection because when you see it from the single camera angle, it's quite hard to see. But he hit it with his weaker foot and it flew in past Glenn Morris, who had an excellent game, by the way, in goal for Gillingham. Then the penalty, really, really soft. This I don't know.
Is it a shirt pull?
It's a shirt pull, but everybody does this in every penalty area in every game we see. The player doesn't go down, and then I think it's Max Irma who is penalised. He then gets a really good tackle in to clear the ball, but the ref gives the penalty for the initial pull. Now, I get the Gillingham frustrations about it, but you also have to say perhaps if referees were much more consistently giving this kind of penalty, we'd see far less infractions in the box taking place, which kind of can hamper the game at times. But because that's not the case, it does look really, really soft, and I feel for Gillingham for giving this away, because it was Lucas Akins who then scored to make it 2-0, and a bit of revenge for him because of course he had his penalty saved by Glenn Morris in the reverse fixture at Priestfield earlier in the season. Glenn Morris then makes a wonderful save from an Akins header. I think this was in the second half. Really good effort. which looked like it was flying in between the point between the sort of the stanchion, just below the stanchion between post and crossbar, and somehow the cat leans back and flicks it over the bar. Really good goalkeeping. Gillingham didn't really have many opportunities, but George Lapsey, back against his old club, saw his header saved really well by Scott Flinders. About 15 minutes from time, I think it was, before the Stags went on to just really see the game out well. And I think Nigel Clough will be absolutely delighted. He's not getting carried away because he knows this Mansfield team that we talk about season on season just aren't consistent enough to sort of back as a side that you'd think will definitely get themselves into a playoff space at the end of the season. But they've got talent, that's for sure. And I think it's just strange that sometimes they're not able to harness it on a more consistent basis. But they've got 46 points from their 29 games, so they're well in that playoff hunt. At the moment, they are 6th in the table, and it's a very important win for them, which means that they move themselves forward. And as I say, 4 unbeaten now in the league for them, with a big week coming up.
They certainly are on that hunt. This is a very impressive win over a Gillingham side that up to this point were unbeaten in their Luluk team, and we still have confidence that Gillingham will pick up and get themselves well away from the relegation zone by the end of the season. Harrogate Town 1, Stockport County 3. The second game in a row where Harrogate Town have scored a goal without putting a shot on target. Their goal in this one is it's a low ball from the left-hand side, and it ends up going down as a Ben Hinchcliffe own goal. It doesn't give them any points on this occasion, though, unlike at Carlisle United last week. Stockport were already 2 goals ahead at this point through goals from Miles Hippolyte and Isaac Oluwathe, and they'd had a third 10 minutes after this own goal through Will Collar to complete a fairly routine win for them, in truth. The own goal is a little bit of a dampener, sadly, for Hinchcliffe, the Stockport goalkeeper, because this was actually a special occasion for him. It's his 307th appearance for Stockport County. It breaks the record for the most by a Stockport County goalkeeper, which had stood for decades. You're going back to the days just after World War II for the last time a Stockport goalkeeper made that many appearances for the club. Realistically, as I've said, this was pretty routine, really, for Stockport County away at Wetherby Road. They didn't have Paddy Mann available, their Irish striker, didn't need him. They had Carl Woodson and Isaac Oluwathe leading the line. Miles Hippolyte had a star game for them. He started left wing back. He was moved more central when Ryan Rydell was brought on. Had a big part to play in all 3 of Stockport's goals yesterday. There's a new name I want to quickly mention to Harrogate Town who caught my eye, Kazim Ola Igbe. He's a 20-year-old winger. He's on loan from Southampton. He spent the first half of the season at Ross County up in Scotland. Looked lively on either flank on what was his debut yesterday. It was his low ball across that led to that Hinchcliffe own goal. Harrogate have definitely got more favourable fixtures to come after playing a Stockport County side who sit in the playoff places after a slow start to the season. What we've seen the last couple of years in League Two is a team with generally high expectations that has started very slow and picked up. Is it fair to say, Harry, that Stockport maybe fall into that bracket this season?
Yeah, I think if you're going to give it to anybody, it'd be Stockport, wouldn't it? They're the team that you don't want to face at the minute. We knew what quality was in that squad, but I think the question marks at the start of the season were just they brought so many new players in it, and it was how do you get that chemistry? You want to get all your new signings in, but you want to have players playing together. And he sort of stuck it out, and as a result, they did start quite slowly. But what we're seeing now is a team gelling really well. And I wanted to mention a player that maybe didn't get as much favour as he could have done at Tranmere in Neil Byrne. He slotted so well into that back 3, and the 3 that they had of Hussey, Byrne and Wright yesterday, it's just so solid, isn't it? You can't see them conceding a lot of goals, and with the likes of Wootton, Oliofe, Madden up front, they're dangerous at both ends. And yeah, I'd be amazed if they're not pushing for a promotion come the end of the season.
They definitely will be targeting back to back, and yeah, they are a strong team, undoubtedly, from front to back. Neil Byrne's taken advantage of the fact that Fraser Horsfall's not been fit to play, so he's got that spot in centre of the back 3 his own. And they like playing Chris Hussey at left centre back and Aku Wright at right centre back, because it's a couple of technical ball players they can have that allow the team as a whole to push further up and get the wing backs further forwards. And I just fall more in love with Will Collar week on week. He's a fantastic midfielder for them, brilliant player for sure. James, Swindon Town 0, Doncaster Rovers 2.
Yeah, this one, I don't know if you've seen the video post-match of Charlie Austin having an argy-bargy with a supporter, but I think the frustrations from the Swindon supporters is palpable. Very flat atmosphere. Jody Morris obviously coming as the new manager, but not really bringing with him that kind of energy that certain appointments have been made in the past at other teams and even indeed at Swindon. it was a very poor first half all round. Luke Molineux had a sort of a half chance, which Solbrin did well to sort of palm away when he was clean through on goal. You might argue the striker was trying to be too cute with the finish, but I give credit to the goalkeeper here. Then Solbrin made a really good save from Carl Hurst, a nice header looping in towards the left-hand corner, keeper diving away to his left to palm it around the post. And then Swindon really didn't have very much. They had a Johnny Williams shot from distance, which was comfortably saved by Jonathan Mitchell. Then a Jake Kane classy free kick effort hit the bar. But it was a bit of a meh performance from Swindon. I just do not think this team have the quality that they've had in the previous couple of seasons. And I think there will need to be some strong additions going forward to change that. Luke Molineux scored it's a good goal. He scored it in the 71st minute where he cuts in from that right-hand touchline onto his stronger foot and then hits the shot on the reverse angle back past the goalkeeper, who maybe should have done better. But if you're the defence there, you look at that and think that is far too easy. You're showing a player onto his stronger foot into the box. It just shouldn't happen. And then good work from George Miller a couple of minutes later to set him up for his second, where he does hit a nice shot and a good finish from distance. Again, though, question marks maybe over Bryn needing to do a bit better. And it was all a bit flat from Swindon in this one. Charlie Austin didn't get the service at all that he needed. And I just think if you think of the players Swindon have had, I did make a list of it, but I've left it downstairs. But what was funny about that list was they had players like Louis Reed, they had Ben Gladwin, they had Mr. Hothead, whose name escapes me, who's now in Scotland. What's his name?
Harry McCurdy.
Harry McCurdy, that's it.
How can you forget Harry McCurdy, James? Come on.
Yeah, that's shocking. But I mean, the quality of the players that they've had in recent season, even Kane Hessler, who was a wonderful, wonderful player in that season with Ben Gardner there, they have lost considerable quality. I don't think they had a particularly strong transfer window either. So, are they a side going to push themselves into this promotion push? They're certainly in it, but I think they've got a weaker case than some of those around them. Doncaster, back-to-back wins, back-to-back clean sheets.
I don't understand Doncaster at all.
I don't either. I was about to say,
they are so inconsistent. I don't know what they're going to do on Tuesday against Barrow. Not a clue.
Lose 6-0.
I just don't know. They are consistently inconsistent. That's the way to describe Donny at the moment.
Yeah, they're still within the 100.
Yeah, they are. That's what's weird, because it felt like doom and gloom probably a couple of weeks ago. Then he beat Tranmere and Swindon, and now it's suddenly looking maybe all right. I just don't know what's going to come next with them.
No idea, but that's a very good performance on the road. Did exactly what they needed to and scored the goals when they had the opportunities.
Please, Doncaster, bit of consistency. That's all we're asking for. Harry, Tranmere Rovers 1, Salford City 0. A win for the Super Wide Army.
I know, 2 weeks in a row that I'm talking about.
Happy days.
I'm not going to mention midweek. That didn't happen. But no, it was a nice win, and I think it was a deserved win for Tranmere, but it's not a game that's going to live particularly long in the memory for either side. Tranmere dominated large parts of the game, and I think based on the last couple of games, we're slowly, at home at least, starting to look a bit more like the side of last season that doesn't score loads of goals but doesn't concede many either. That being said, Salford had the first chance of the game in under 60 seconds. Fell to Louis Barry, who was not able to get his shot on target after being played through. The game took a while to get going from there, but Tranmere grew well. And on 22 minutes, some excellent build-up play on the left wing between Regan Hendry, Josh Hawkes and Bristow allowed him to race into the box and fizz a ball across goal to Kieran Morris, who was able to tap in. Salford didn't really create much for the rest of the half, and it was Tranmere who looked more dangerous. Harvey Saunders hasn't scored his first goal for the club yet, but he's playing with the confidence of a man who has. And he put an overhead kick just wide from a corner late in the first half. He can't be far off scoring his first goal. And I think I said it when I was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, but he's the player that we've been calling out for, really. Someone who's just going to chase everything down, who's going to be making those runs. And just to be honest, having a striker who's got the confidence to go for an overhead kick when he's not scored for the club yet is quite exciting to see. And I do think once he gets the first, it won't be long before he gets the second. The second half was more of the same, really, with the exception of some of the best defending I've ever seen in person.
I don't love this. This is so good.
It's incredible. And if you haven't seen the alternative angle, if you go to Tranmere Rovers' Twitter account, there was a GoPro attached behind the goal. And even seeing it that up close, you can't really believe that it happened. But Manchester United loanee Ethan Galbraith played a great ball over the top into Luke Bolton. who slotted it under Matt Hevel. It looked destined to be the equaliser, and he'd started celebrating, only for Ethan Bristow to fly in, knock it onto the post, back onto himself and out. The ball then fell to Matt Smith to head into an empty net from about 4 yards out, but there was Tom Davies to get himself in the way and just hoof it away from danger. Honestly, I turned to my girlfriend who was at the game with me and I said, I think that's the best thing I've ever seen at a football match. We celebrated it more than we celebrated the goal. You can hear it in the highlights. And I feel like I'm saying it every week, but we're so lucky at Tranmere to have Tom Davies and Jordan Turnbull at centre-back. Now that they're playing regularly together, they're forming a real partnership, and it's just such a hard defensive pair to break through when they're on form. The two chances that I just mentioned fell seconds apart from each other, and they were Salford's only shots on target all game, which is an impressive effort against one of the better attacks in the league. So I'm hoping that we can carry that on to a tough trip to Valley Parade on Tuesday.
Really big game there for sure. I want to quickly ask you about the midfield. What we've seen throughout most of Tranmere's time is that he's gone with the pair of Leo Connor and Chris Merry, but it was Regan Hendry yesterday. And does that make a difference having Hendry in there as opposed to Merry?
It did, yeah. So on Tuesday, he went for Hendry and Brad Walker. He dropped both of the guys who've been playing it. For whatever reason, it didn't really work out. I don't think Brad Walker's at full fitness yet. So Leo Connor came back in. And I think it not so much in terms of the actual shape of it, but in terms of how it was played, it almost works more like a diamond, where you've got Leo Connor not having to come in and help with the attack quite as much, which he's a bit less suited to. And you've got Regan Hendry able to sort of float about a bit more. And he was so integral to a lot of the attack that was going on. He was sort of turning up on either wing, being that third man to help with the link-up play between full-back and winger. And he looks like he's going to be a really important part of the team for the rest of the year. I absolutely love Chris Merry, and I hope that this doesn't mean he's lost his place in the team. But I think the issue with playing Merry and O'Connor is they're very similar midfielders. They're both brilliant at tackling. They're pretty good defensively, but they don't do a huge amount in the attack. And what we've missed is having a centre midfielder who's not afraid to get forward. Especially
when you play two men in the middle as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think it could work as a midfield three potentially. And that is something that some of our fans have been calling for a bit. But if you're going to play those two centre midfielders, then you need at least one of them who's not afraid to sort of take it forward and get involved in the attack a bit. And we'll be keeping a close eye on Regan Hendry with the hope that we might be able to get him back next season. I know it's a bit early to be saying that, but I'd love to see him come back on a permanent deal.
I would hope so, yeah. He was a really big player for Forest Green in their promotion-winning season last year, and not quite hacked at League One level. And Forest Green have let him go to Tranmere, and that can only be to Rovers' benefit, really. We'll see as the season progresses. James, Grimsby Town 0, Colchester United 1.
So the Mariners' disappointment after such a wonderful performance in the cup game against Luton Town. I mean, fantastic for them to win there, and then a bit of a, I don't know what you call it, like a bounce back down to earth, or however the expression goes. It was just a bit of a flat performance. Colchester weren't great either, but this is their 5th straight away victory. And I went back 40 years, right? Wow. And I still couldn't find another season where they'd done this. Not even in their promotion seasons from the conference, I think in the early 90s, and in their wonderful promotion season where they finished, I think, second to Southend in 2005-06 and got their moment in the sun, Layer Road in the Championship, something that should never be forgotten. Just absolutely brilliant. But yeah, they never in either of those seasons had more than 4 away wins on the bounce, and which is crazy to me because I think you pointed it out on Twitter that before
they
this
picked
run of
up
5
1
games,
point on their first 11 away games.
Yeah, they had 1 point from 33 points away from home before this 5-game run. It's bonkers, isn't it? And this is what football is. I mean, defies logic at times. The only goal of this game came from Tom Hopper. He headed home after a Fiacre Keller looping header from a corner went goalwards, and he snuck in at sort of the back post to head home, his first goal for the club. Grimsby did have opportunities. There's a classic goalmouth scramble in this. I don't know if you guys saw it with Michi Efete in the end hooking a shot wide when it looked easier to score. But I do love those moments in low league football where everyone's just scrambling around, throwing themselves on the floor, and yet the ball doesn't seem to be moving very much in all of it. It's just bobbling around somewhere in the mess. And in the end, Efete just knocked it wide. There wasn't really much else from Grimsby as they huffed and puffed. They had a few, a few moments. But really, I have to give credit here to a solid performance from Colchester United on the road. And I like the fact that Matt Bloomfield is being quite creative with his lineup. I mean, he put big guys in attack when you think John Akinde and Tom Hopper, both fairly good, strong players to have in attack with Matt J behind them. Cole Skuse did go off injured in this, which is a big concern because he is a very experienced midfielder for them and has been all season. But they've utilised their transfer window brilliantly. Chambers, Keller and Connor Hall, two of those, of course, new additions in January, were the back four, in the back three. They had Connor Wood playing as that left wing back. And then, of course, they had Matt J and Tom Hopper, who were also additions in the winter window, playing in this team that has changed the fortunes of the club completely. When we thought, I actually did a daily on Colchester or on the relegation battle, and they were the one side at the time that I really didn't see much hope for in getting out of it. And their strong transfer window has actually changed all that. So,
we did have a lot of concern about Colchester at the start of the season and in the first half of the season, but I completely agree. It's up to debate who had a better window out of Gillingham and Colchester, really. They both brought in so much immense quality. And Cole Yu absolutely relishing it right now under Matt Bloomfield, who won the manager of the month, by the way, to January, and folded up with a win. So let's have none of this cursed nonsense, right? Paul Ward lost again to Wycombe, not because he was manager of the month, just because Wycombe were better than them. Well done, Cole Yu, on another great victory on the road at Grimsby Town. Barrow 0, Newport County 1. Away wins are always great as a football fan, and wins where you've had a 522-mile round trip, they're just even better. It's just a matter of fact. There were chances to both sides in this game. Most of them came to Newport County, the away side. The big talking point in this match is a red card. It's the Rory Thiele. He's an Irish fullback who is making his home debut for Barrow. He goes in for a challenge on a loose ball against Adam Lewis, one of Newport's wing-backs, ends up clattering into him. Apparently there were visible stud marks in Thiele's thigh that were from Lewis's high boot on him. It's the Barrow man, however, who is sent off, to his complete shock and disbelief. You can see on the footage back, it's a surprise to him, it's a surprise to the players around. The Barrow fans really disapprove of it, as does the Barrow bench as well. I don't really like the decision. I can recall a lot of it.
It's not a red card.
I know, I can think of so many incidents I've seen over time at previous games, and they don't normally end in reds. Maybe there's a yellow, but a red for something like that.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, he's tried to stop the counter attack, hasn't he? And you get a yellow card.
It's a loose ball, Harry, is what it is.
It's just not a red card. Full stop.
No, he does clatter into it, but I think there should be a lot more red cards, to be honest, if that kind of thing merits a red card, because I've seen them regularly, and they normally end up in yellow if any cards are given at all. Wild has to react immediately, gets Tura Warren on to play it right back in the place of Billy Waters, who's taken off. The final minutes of this game are spent 10 against 11, and it's Newport County who capitalise in the 95th minute. It's a corner headed from Adam Lewis, powered in by the head of centre-back Mickey Dimitriou. Couple of consecutive wins to Newport County, precious set of points to them, as they'd found themselves in a position in the table where they'd been looking over the shoulder at the teams down at the very bottom of the league. I still maintain my belief that Newport can and should be in a better position than the bottom third of the table right now. I think they are a better group of players. It's been a really forgettable season of the Exiles overall. Barrow, they are winless in 5. They've only won 1 of the last 11 league matches. They've had a really good season, flirting up with the top places. It's falling away right now, and that's a shame. They're in a rut that they do need to sort out under Pete Wild. Harry will focus on two teams right down the bottom. Crawley Town 2, Crewe Alexandra 2.
Yeah, this was a very eventful but low quality match between two sides who are struggling to perform at the minute. And to be honest, a point doesn't really suit either of them. Crawley took the lead early on. Kellen Gordon charged into the box and whipped a ball back across goal that took an unfortunate deflection off Luke Offord to make it 1-0. Stayed that way until early in the second half. Ryan Finnegan threaded a ball into Dan Adji, who finished extremely well from the tightest of angles to equalise. I don't know how he's done it, to be honest. It's impressive. It looks like it's almost gone out for a goal kick, and next thing you know, it's in the top corner. 10 minutes later, Callum Ainley was fouled in the box, and Adji was able to put Crewe in front for the first time in the game. Apparently it was his first brace as well, first time he's ever scored 2 in a game. So that'll be some relief to the Crewe fans who are just praying for goals anywhere. It was also the first time in 28 games that Crewe have scored more than once, a stat that really doesn't bode well for the end of a season. They've only kept 9 clean sheets all season. So when you consider that, 27 games ago was the last time they'd scored 2 or more, you are concerned, really, aren't you? There, and there's not loads of goals in the front of that squad. Despite losing Sean Robertson to a second yellow card with 5 minutes of normal time to go, the Railwaymen must have thought they were finally about to put an end to a run of 5 games without a win, only for Ben Gladwin to give the game a suitably bonkers finish after drilling the ball under Dave Richards to earn Crawley a point late on. Crewe are 8 points clear of the relegation zone, which in theory should be enough, but I don't think they're by any means safe. I worry for Crewe. Like I say, they're not keeping many clean sheets. They're not scoring anywhere near enough goals. And I don't think there are any matches you go into where you'd say they're the favourites at the minute. If you look at the teams that are below them as well, you've got Gillingham down there, who I think we all agree won't be down there for long. You've got Crawley down there, who could do absolutely anything at this point. You've got Hartlepool down there, who are looking like they might be turning things around a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised to see Crewe pulled into that relegation battle. And I don't know what they've got in their arsenal necessarily that would help them.
I got asked about by a Crewe fan on Twitter about the possibility of relegation for Crewe, and my honest answer was not this season, because you have to worry for Crewe in the long term. You felt this going back into last season when they were adrift at the bottom of League One. It was a really poor season from them, and you looked at them and felt a team that far adrift at the bottom of League One would probably be down the bottom of the League Two as well. It's duly ended up being like that this season. They've really struggled for goals. Dan Ajayi is turning into a crucial player at the moment, especially while they've got Courtney Baker-Richardson out. He's probably their main source of goals. If Elliot Nevitt doesn't provide real consistency with his goal scoring as well, so crucial for him to get a brace. That is a real sucker punch with that Gladwin equaliser, though. And is it a good result for Crawley, do you say, in the end? Maybe throwing objectives?
I think, given the way they've gone about getting the point, it's a good result. It's, again, when you're down at the bottom of the table, so much of it's about mentality, isn't it? And if you're able to push that late into a game and get an equaliser, it's a good sign that they've got a bit of bottle about them. So, I don't know. I'm scared to say too much more about Crawley, because whatever we say will be proved wrong. If we predict that they're going to turn things around, they'll play badly. And if we predict that they're going to get relegated, then they'll probably go on a run and somehow make the playoffs. So, I
think we can leave. I think we can stop the playoff conversation with Crawley now. I don't think we need to do that anymore. All I want from Crawley is just them to get on with it without interference. Just let Scott Lindsay do his thing, because I do really think that's a group of players that shouldn't be where they are and can get away from it. And if they do, it will be without interference from anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, and since Lindsay's come in, they are looking like a different side, aren't they? They're looking a bit more structured. He's playing the players that you'd expect them to play, and albeit it wasn't a win, but they're picking up the results a bit more. So yeah, fingers crossed that this is the start of something a bit more positive for them.
You hope so, but we'll have to see. One team who will not be hoping that Crawley Town pick up are Hartlepool United. They had a 2-2 draw with Sutton United up in County Durham yesterday. All the action for this game was in the first half. Sutton, after half an hour, were 2 goals ahead. David Adjaboy and Lee Angle scoring in front of the away end. The game's really impacted, however, by a pair of quick-thigh yellow cards to Craig Eastman, who's been a real defensive key in the middle of Sutton's team, and Hartlepool are back level at 2-2 before our time. It's a pair of brilliant Hartlepool goals. One of them is a great 3 kicks from Dan Kemp, and the other is a thumping left foot hit from defender Dan Dodds. It's his second crucial goal in 2 games to the defender. He's been brilliant. Really significant pair of results to Hartlepool in his last 2 weekends. The target for them now at this stage of the season has to be earning a minimum of 22nd place in the table, survival. It feels only a matter of time, as we've said, before Gillingham, who are currently 23rd, do go past them with the strength they have. But Hartlepool have got to be eyeing up Crawley Town and Harrogate Town, and maybe even Crewe, as teams that they could pass by the end of the season. But all of them have played more games than Hartlepool currently have. But they're not much further ahead. Harrogate are currently 1 point ahead of Hartlepool. Crawley are level on points with Hartlepool at the moment. They can both be caught, certainly. We've spoken before about the need for Hartlepool to strengthen what was a weakened squad this winter. They really have done that. 7 out of the 11 who started that game yesterday against Sutton were January signings. The only regular faces in there, wing-backs Jamie Sterry and David Ferguson, midfielder Nicky Featherston, and striker Josh Romero. The 4 of them are among Hartlepool's start players. Keeping Josh Romero the top scorer is huge to Keith Curle's side. There was a bit of thought he might end up leaving to Burton Aaron in in the winter window, but that was silenced pretty quickly when the bid was initially put in. What you've added to that group now is a strike partner for O'Mara and Connor Jennings, a key attacking midfielder in Dan Kemp, a new look backline and a goalkeeper, as well as midfielder Ollie Finney, who was brought in on deadline day for Crewe Alexandra. It just brings more balance to their central unit that previously looked very defensive when you've got Nicky Thurston and Matty Dolan playing in there instead. Dan Dodds, though, looks a great signing. They bought him from Middlesbrough in January. He'd been on loan at Darlington in the National League North in the first half of the season where he looked really good. He plays on the right side defence primarily. He's 22 years old. If Hartlepool do stay up, he's definitely going to play a part in that. He has been very popular in County Durham already. I think he's played 6 matches and they already love him. A Northumberland lad getting really popular up in the North East for a Hartlepool side that might start to have growing belief that they could actually pull off survival this season. We'll wait and see. 3 more games to run through, 3 draws. Walsall 1, Leyton Orient 1. A pair of Loney centre-back scoring in this game. It's Bristol City Loney Joe Lowe who opens the scoring with the 3-header to the Saddlers. Orient's equaliser coming to one of their own lone centre-backs. Brighton Hove Albion's Ed Turns. Really good goal, firing into the far corner of the net after the ball falls his way. There's plenty more than just these 2 chances though in this game at the best got between 2 of the league's stronger looking sides for sure. Rochdale 1, Northampton Town 1. A terrible Jack Salby back pass, eventually scored by Ian Henderson to give Rochdale the lead. It's a really good finish from the 38-year-old, his 6th goal of the season in League 2. Northampton's equaliser is late on. It's a thumping hit from an angle by Ben Fox. Rochdale can't afford to keep dropping these points. That win would have been so huge to them, but they've got so much work to do to even get back into the conversation with the teams above them in the relegation battle. And the other game to mention yesterday, League 2, ASC Wimbledon 0, Carlisle United 0 at Plough Lane. I will run through the League 2 table to finish. Leyton Orient lead the way. They're on 64 points from 31 games. They benefit from Stevenage's defeat to Bradford, who are second, 56 points from 28. Carlisle United are third. They're on 52 from 30. Northampton Town right behind them on 51 from 29. Salford City are 5th. They've had 48 points from 30 games. Mansfield Town 6th on 46 from 29. Stockport County map up the player places on 45 from 29. I'm going to take a deep breath as I go through the rest of this top end of League 2. You've got Bradford City in 8th who are on 45. You've got Doncaster in 9th who are on 43. Swindon Town in 10th who are on 42. Tranmere Rovers who are 11th on 41. Barrow who are 12th on 41, Sutton United who are 13th on 41, ASC Wimbledon who are 14th on 40, Walsall who are 15th on 39, still utter carnage up the top of that table. Down at the bottom, Rochdale, that point is not ideal, they really needed that win, 21 points from 30 games, got a 3-point gap between themselves and 23rd place Gillingham who are 24th from 28. Hartlepool stay out the bottom tooth and now, 26 from 30 games. Crawley Town 26 from 27 games are 21st. 20th place are Harrogate on 27 from 28. And you might throw a little bit to Crewe Alexandra who are 19th, 32 from 28. That is going to wrap up this episode. James has sadly had to leave us early, but Harry, thank you very much for your contributions to this episode, mate.
No worries. Thanks for having me on again.
Join us again next week for more to the world's best 3rd and 4th tiers. We'll see you then. Goodbye.